If your client identified protection as a top priority, use this box as your guide in computing for your client's needs. Here are the steps to compute for the protection needs of your client. A. Find out your client's monthly budget. This is the amount they spend on a monthly average. For example, let's use 20,000 pesos. B. Multiply that number by 12 to determine how much they spend on average in a year. Using our example of 20,000 pesos, we'll get 240,000 pesos. C. Determine the years to protect the income. To do this, you need to know who the dependents of your clients are. If your client's dependent is a child, subtract the age of the youngest child to 23. If the client has multiple children, use the age of the youngest child in your computation. For example, 23 minus 3 if your client has a 3-year-old child as a dependent. We use the age 23 in our computation because this is when an individual usually becomes financially independent. If your client's dependent is their parent, subtract the age of that parent to 80. If both parents are still alive, use the age of the younger parent in your computation. For example, 80 minus 65 if your client has a 65-year-old parent as a dependent. We use the age 80 as a basis because this is the average life expectancy. If your client has no dependents other than himself, subtract the age of your client to 60. Example, 60 minus 30 if your client is 30 years old. We use the age 60 as a basis because this is the usual age of retirement. Knowing this information gives us a rough idea of the number of years that we would need to protect the income of your client. For our example, let's put 20 years. D. Determine the family protection need. Multiply the number you computed for letter B by the number of years you computed for letter C. For example, 240,000 pesos annual budget multiplied by 20 years equals 4,800,000 pesos. Next, we ask if the client has already begun preparing for the family protection need you computed in letter D. For example, your client already purchased an insurance policy with 2 million pesos sum assured 5 years ago. F. Finally, to determine the shortfall, we subtract the amount declared by the client in letter E to the protection need we computed in letter D. Example, 4,800,000 pesos family protection need minus 2 million pesos existing insurance coverage equals 2,800,000 pesos protection shortfall.